All right. Hello and welcome to today's webinar on how to differentiate as top talent. I am so delighted that you are here. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, founder of My Marketability. I'm a career coach, speaker, and trainer, and I help you stand out, get hired, and earn more. Thank you so much for being here today. If you are here live with me, type in the chat room to let me know what's your target profession and where you're from. This is also a great opportunity for you to network with others as well. Feel free later on to exchange LinkedIn URLs as well to support each other. So the purpose of today's webinar is to help you elevate your game and your brand so that you stand out to get more opportunities and get hired faster. My intention is to really be of service and add value. I know it's a tough time right now. Some of you may feel a little bit lost, where you recently lost your job, or some of you just graduated and not sure what to do next. Some of you may feel a bit really stressed right now because you've been looking for quite some time, or some of you are just feeling really overwhelmed or emotionally exhausted right now, given everything that's happening there. And I want to let you know that you're not alone. I hear you, I see you, and I feel you as well. This is why I run events like this, to really provide that support to each other. Okay, it's great to see so many of you already online there. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, feel free to share with each other where you're from and what your target profession is. Okay, so here's what you can expect. So I prepared a presentation that I'm about to share with you. It'll be about 60 minutes long. I'll walk you through the training. I've specifically tailored to this audience because I did a survey as well to find out more what you're really interested in learning. So it'll be about an hour long. And then after that, I'm going to open up the floor to Q&A there. Okay. So my ask is for you to really be present with me here. Okay. I want you to imagine that you've paid me $100 for this training, because I know that if you really pay attention to this training, take notes and implement, you're going to get tons of value from it. Okay. There will be a recording sent out afterwards. I'll send the replay. Okay. But still take notes along the way, as that will help you retain the training there. Okay. All right. Great to see so many of you. Oh my goodness. We have people from, where are we? I'm in Toronto. So I know a lot of you are in Canada. I see people from India here as well. Amazing. I know some people from like Australia, Hong Kong, Chile. I know I have people who have joined as well. So thank you so much. Great to see so many of you here. Okay. So first of all, a few things. I want to give a few things. One is I want to give a shout out to the volunteers at Certified Listener Society. I know there is a group here. I decided to also support them as well, because they provide 24/7 emotional support for those in need. So if you're looking for some emotional support, feel free to check out that organization, or if you want to volunteer there as well. Another shout out is to Tanya and Jean, who have been assisting me the last few weeks with organizing, promoting this webinar as well. Jean here, who you see, is assisting me behind the scenes, who's moderating the chat room, and will be sharing with you like links along the way. Because throughout the presentation, I won't be able to really see the chat room. I have my other computer here, but I'll be focused on my presentation slides, and I'll leave till the end to answer questions there. Okay. All right. So before I dive into the presentation, I'm just going to do a quick poll here, because I really want to get a sense of my audience, where you're at. So I'm going to first start my first poll here. Is what level are you at in your career? Are you at the new grad entry level, or the mid-level, or are you at the management and senior level? So do a quick poll here to let me know. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. So we have about 40% of you who are at the new grad entry level, and then another 44% of you at the mid-level, and the remainder at the management senior level. Okay. Regardless what level you're at, I'm sure you're going to get value. I've worked with professions from entry level all the way to a C level there. Awesome. Okay. Amazing, amazing. So let me also check out, I want to find out is what's your target profession as well? Is it, are you in like marketing, advertising, or product management, project management? Are you in sales or finance, risk management or consulting? Or are you in like HR operations or other? If you can share with me, that'll be helpful as well. Okay. All right. Let me see here. So what are the results here? So majority of you, about 27% are in product management, project management, IT engineering. Okay. So the second is a tie right now between finance, risk, strategy, consulting, HR operations. Okay, that's another 17% each. Okay, all right, so that's good to know there. And then the remainder are in the others there. Okay, great. So that's really helpful to know. But product, project management is the majority. Okay. All right, so this is helpful. Good, good. Okay, and then one last question before I dive in here is I want to know is how long have you been actively looking for a job? Is it less than a month, 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or more than a year? Okay, so that would give you an idea where you're at as well. Okay. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so majority of you, let me see here, about 30% of you are about between the 3 to 6 month mark, and then the other 30% is 1 to 3 months mark there. Okay, so that's where a majority of you are, because that's good matter. So 1 to 6 months where you're at in terms of looking for a job there. Okay, well, thank you. This is really, really helpful. Great. Amazing. Okay, awesome. Okay, lots of you here, about 200 of you here. Okay, and lots of familiar faces as well. So thank you. Big shout out to all my returning participants as well. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so let's dive right into the presentation, shall we? Okay, I'm going to get into the presentation. Give me one moment here. Okay, so welcome to this webinar, Differentiate as Top Talent, How to Brand, Market, and Sell Yourself Effectively. I'm your trainer, Diana YK Chan. So here's what we're going to cover today. The key to your job search success, how to stand out and get more opportunities, how to position yourself for success, the proven Magnify Your Marketability framework, how to develop your personal brand and identify your unique value, how to market yourself, how to sell yourself, and what employers look for in interviews, key signs of high potential talent, and Q&A. Okay, so based on my survey, most of you indicated that you are most interested in really learning more about branding, positioning, and selling. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on those 3 areas there. Okay, awesome. Oh, one thing to mention, if you do have a question, please make sure to submit in Q&A mode. So that way it goes into the Q&A chat room when I go look into it. It's when you submit the chat, you actually just have to select Q&A there. So that way it's in its own forum that I can easily look at questions at the end there. Okay. Okay, so before we dive in, I want to get a little bit intro about me, because I know about 1/3 of you have attended my previous events and the rest of you, 70%, are new to my work there. So I'm a former recruiter turned career coach, speaker, and trainer at My Marketability that was founded in 2011. And I've been recognized as one of the top 10 job search experts on LinkedIn to follow. My mission is to really help ambitious professionals and executives like you to gain career clarity, confidence, and a competitive edge to get hired and earn more. I've worked with thousands of people globally, from new grads to C-level in diverse industries and professions. So I've worked with people and helping them getting hired into the top tech firms, such as like Amazon, Google, LinkedIn, and top banks, all the top banks there in investment banking, top consulting firms as well, CPG, retail, and many more. I have a passion for helping people to reach their full potential by owning their greatness. It's one of my favorite sayings. I really believe that when you own your greatness with confidence, that's when you can shine and really make an impact in the world. My superpower, which is really my strength, is that I'm really good at helping you connect the dots and differentiate people's unique value, or what really makes you stand out. And my brand, so part of my brand is all about empowerment, excellence, which is really having high standards as well, and being energetic. And my core values is authenticity, connection, and inspiration. I share this with you because I not only want to give you a sense of who I am, but I also want to encourage you to really think about, like, these words you see here, the red words. It's really for you to think about your why, what you care about, what you're good at, what's important to you, what's your brand, because this is what's really going to help set you apart from the competitive job market there. Okay, so this is why I decided to do this as well. In terms of a little bit more about my background, like prior to starting my business, I have gained diverse experience where I've worked in corporate, I've worked in training, marketing, operations. I was also in management consulting as well. And then I've done a lot of work in recruiting on both the corporate recruiting side as a recruiter for Google Canada, where back 2011, I was the first and only recruiter to help them double their office size. And I've also worked as an agency recruiter as well, where I've recruited for a variety of roles and industries. So I have recruited for roles from entry level all the way to C-level as well. And I've seen millions of LinkedIn profiles, over 20,000 resumes, and done thousands of interviews. So I'm going to really share with you a lot of like my insights and experience. What does it really take to differentiate as top talent to get you hired faster? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to first start from the angle of the job search mistake. From what I've seen as a coach and as a recruiter, the number one mistake that most people do, and when I talk to them, is just applying for jobs online. You get less than 3% chance of getting an interview. Okay. I've heard some of you who've applied for over 100 jobs, 200 jobs, 300 jobs, and have not been getting interviews. And this is one of the common mistake is just relying on applying for jobs. So what's really critical here is to really clarity and strategy must come first before the execution. So one thing that I'm noticing even lately right now, and I think it's because people are in a bit more of that desperate energy mode where they're trying to get a job. A lot of times when people reach out to me is, Diana, can you help me fix my resume? Can you help me fix my LinkedIn profile? These two things are really important to help you get a job. However, it is so key to also take a step back to really ask yourself, what is it that you're targeting? Why do you want what you want? What is that game plan there? Okay. It's really getting that big picture strategy, as that's going to really help you differentiate and stand out. Okay. So here are the 4 key pillars to job search success. Okay. I call it my 4 M's. This is based on my experience of having worked with hundreds of clients one-on-one. And these are like the 4 key areas to focus on. One is really the mindset. So the mindset is all about how you see yourself. What are your beliefs? What are the stories that you tell yourself? Do you see yourself as a marketable candidate, a valuable candidate? Do you have that winning mindset? Okay. This is so key. It is really the foundation. I know when you are in that space where you don't have a job, or you may feel desperate, and it may have impacted your confidence as well. So it is so key to work on this. I've had a client many years ago when he was getting tons of interviews but not closing. And one thing that I asked him was like, what is his mindset going into the interview? And he told me was his mindset was going in around like, I'll just go in for the employer to see what's wrong with me. And by having that mindset, this is the reason why he was not really closing the interviews. As soon as we worked on that intention, setting a different intention that I am marketable, I am valuable, I have great skills and experience to offer, it changed instantly that he got an offer. So this is so key, is to work on the mindset. The second is the messaging. So this is part of selling yourself effectively. So the messaging around your elevator pitch, the messaging around your branding, the messaging for how you're going to sell yourself on LinkedIn or in your resume, that all ties into the messaging. And this is why personal branding is so key, is because branding is going to really help you get to the essence of how you want to sell yourself effectively through the right keywords, through your online, like your image, how you show up. That's all going to make a difference as well. The third piece is really the marketing. So it's all about the strategies and tactics of how you want to market yourself to generate more, increase that awareness and visibility, that for people to know that you are looking and to make you stand out. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some ideas later on of what are some of the marketing initiatives that you can do. So it's almost like imagining that you launch a marketing campaign to promote yourself. Okay, so that's another key area. The last piece is meeting people. So this is AKA networking. Okay. Studies show that over 70% of the jobs are found through networking, and you are 5 times more likely to get hired through a referral. So meeting people is a key part to your job search success. And this is why just applying for jobs online is not enough there. Okay. I have so many stories I can share with you of why it's so important to put yourself out there and meet people to generate opportunities. Okay. Okay, so how to stand out and get more opportunities. So this is something I've been talking a lot about the last like several months, and it's something that the form that I've been teaching a lot, and something I really want you to walk away with to help you really think big picture of the key things you want to keep in mind as you continue to put yourself out there to generate opportunities. Okay, so first is really you want to increase your marketability, and you want to increase your visibility and increase your credibility to generate more opportunities. Okay, so these are the three things that I talk about a lot. And let me explain what that means. So marketability is all about being marketable. Okay? And visibility is all about being seen. Credibility is about being recognized. Okay, so here are some things to consider under each bucket there. So marketability, it's all about the personal branding piece, right? How you really present yourself, how you show up. I'm going to talk more about that in terms of how to develop your brand. The elevator pitch in terms of your introduction. I call it the glowing introduction. Your resume, okay, in terms of how you want to sell yourself as well, your overall qualifications, your LinkedIn profile. And the visibility piece is around networking. Okay, so this is a huge piece of job search success. And then content creation as well. So putting content out there. What I've seen right now, the last several months, I've seen quite a few people actually using LinkedIn as a platform to share their story, talk about even the recent situation, about their layoff, and then showcasing their skills or putting together like a portfolio website that helped them land something really quickly there. So I'm going to talk about some ideas around that. Online engagement. So this, again, will increase your visibility. Every time you post a comment or post on LinkedIn, anyone in your network will see it. So this is all about also helping you get top of mind to your network there. Credibility is being recognized. So this is about your reputation, being seen as high potential talent, the go-to expert, testimonials and referrals. So some things you can consider is to really get some testimonials onto your LinkedIn profile, right? So that will help you increase the credibility as well. Getting job referrals would also help increase the rate of getting hired. So I'll give you an example. Like recently I had a VP of marketing level client who was looking to make a change. And he tapped into his network. He reconnected with his former colleague after listening to one of her presentations, like a webinar training, to congratulate her and to have like an online coffee chat. After that conversation, this person, his former colleague, he's based in Canada and his colleague is based in US in Boston. She told him that they were hiring, and they're in like the aging sector technology space there. And so anyhow, long story short, he basically got an opportunity, a remote opportunity, because of this reconnection there. And because I guess like they worked together. So he had a strong endorsement going in, and the employer had trouble finding someone locally and decided to hire someone here in Canada. So this is where like referrals is so powerful. I have so many of these stories I can share with you there. Okay, so the key here is you really want to stand out by being outstanding. Okay, so that is so key, right? And I'm going to talk more about that. Like, what does it really mean there? Okay. So how to position yourself for success. So this is something that, a lot of you expressed, or come to me for, and how do I really position myself? So I'm going to share with you some guiding principles of what to keep in mind. First is really raising the bar. Okay, so what I mean by that is really having that higher standard of excellence in terms of looking at everything that you're presenting, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your elevator pitch. How can you really raise the bar to provide like greater quality, right? One of the common mistakes that I see is oftentimes the materials that I see that people submit to me, oftentimes it's really more focused on talking more about what you've done, but not what you've done differently. So I want to challenge you to really think differently, essentially to raise that bar, to look at, what is it that I can do to showcase my best self there. Next is going above and beyond, right? So this is really, part of that. It's like, being seen as also like a high performer is going above and beyond what you're currently doing. This is similar in the workplace as well. Like, how can you go above and beyond to showcase that you have great leadership potential there? The third piece that ties into the same point is performing at that next level. So for those who are looking to get a promotion, looking to get to that manager level, or looking to get that executive level, you want to showcase that you're already performing at that next level already. I remember when I was in consulting, like one of the things that management always talked about, like to get promoted, is you want to demonstrate that you already are performing those duties, responsibilities at that next level already, to showcase that you are ready there. Next is to really contribute, add value, and make an impact, right? So this is all about going about delivering, really performing. That is so key there. And this is where you really want to take a critical lens, is looking at, okay, well, what is it that based on what I've done, how did I really make a difference? How did I really contribute to the company's bottom line? How did I help my employees grow? Those are the questions that you want to ask yourself there. Next is to really showcase your competencies, accomplishments, and results, not just responsibilities, right? So this is what I mentioned earlier here. It's really think about, like, what are your successes? What are those tangible impacts? What are you really good at doing, right? So that's really pushing it to the next level there. And really, it's also choosing a niche in the area of expertise, right? Part of, in terms of positioning yourself, is that you want to really pick an area in terms of, like, what is it that you're really good at? Right? And what are you really known for? So as an example, like for me as a career coach, right, there's a lot of career coaches out there. And an area that how I've really been differentiating is the fact that because I have a background in recruiting and have worked in corporate, I'm able to go more into the tactical side of things of a job search, in terms of how to really stand out, how to really pitch yourself to recruiters and employers there. Okay, so really understand, like, within that, let's say if you're in marketing, or those who are in like product, what's your differentiation factor, right? And when I was recruiting, let's say for marketing roles, one of the questions that employers like to ask is, like, what kind of marketer are you, right? Like within marketing, like what type of marketing? So similar, if you're in product or you're in engineering, what kind of engineer are you? Like, what's really your area of expertise there? Like, what are you really good at? And so that's really going to help position you for success. Some things I often hear, common feedback I hear from people, is that, well, if I niche myself too much, does that mean I'm closing myself, like in terms of like opportunities there? Well, I think it really depends. I think it is possible, as an example, like some of you, for example, if you're in that space of say IT, you are in say business system analysts, and you have done, let's say, IT, like process improvement work, consulting work. If they are related, you can definitely target those different type of roles, right? It's just that in terms of the positioning of language or messaging that you use, we'll have to tweak accordingly there, depending on what keywords they use. Okay. Another thing to really consider that ties into this, I actually just read an article this morning, is to really identify your transferable skills. I read an article this morning that about 60% of the people are not comfortable in and not sure about what their transferable skills are. And, one of the key things I think right now in today's market right now, because it's so competitive, and if you're looking to pivot to a different industry, you really want to identify what are those transferable skills that you have that you can leverage in another industry. So let's use an example, right? An example could be, for example, like the travel industry, the hospitality industry has really been impacted, right? And if you're looking to pivot into a different industry, what are those transferable skills? So I'm just going to use a general example here. So let's say in the travel and hospitality industry, one of the core aspects is about what? Service, customer service, right? And this means like really good, being good at, having great customer service, relationship building skills, communication skills, sales skills, thinking on your feet, problem solving skills. Those are types, like as an example, of skills that you can identify that can be also highly applicable in a different industry that has also, let's say in the tech industry, that they have like customer success type of roles, which is similar type of qualities or skills that they require. So if you can reposition, yourself by one, identifying those transferable skills, but also really understand in this new industry, new type of roles, like what does it take to succeed? It will then help you essentially reframe and reposition in terms of the messaging into a different industry or role there. Okay, so I hope that helps in terms of giving you an example. Okay, so next I want to walk you through is my Magnify Your Marketability framework. So this is my signature framework that I walk all my clients through in my one-on-one coaching. And this is really what I consider like a strategic level type of framework to help you get a sense of big picture. If you are in that phase of career transition, of trying to figure out what's next, how to figure out your game plan for your job search, how to sell yourself, I want to walk you through this framework to help you with that strategic thinking there. Okay. So the first stage is really what I call the discover your essence. So this is really that career clarity piece. It's really that piece around understanding who you are, what you want, what is it that you have to offer. This is like life coaching, really looking holistically 360 of your bigger vision of your life and career, of who you are, like in terms of your personality, your preferences and strengths. It's really taking a step back to reflect, because by doing this work, this is that clarity work, it's what's really going to give you the confidence, that clarity, and that courage to move forward. And you're going to be a lot more convincing and persuasive when it comes to selling yourself. So that's really that foundation work there. Okay. So if you're feeling you're not sure what to do, this is that first step. The next stage or the phase here is really called defining your personal brand. Right. So once you get a sense of like who you are, what you want, that next phase is, okay, the branding piece, which is really that marketing of really identifying your unique value proposition. What's your brand essence? What's like the brand language that you want to use that will resonate with the employer? Really understanding like how you're perceived, like from your reputation. Those are aspects that you want to understand to help you identify what I call like your marketing sound bites and taglines, basically the essence of you there. Okay. Then the next phase is really determining the market need, right? Like once you understand your brand, the next piece is that market need, which is really what I call the market research, right? So to really to understand the industry, the organizations, the culture, understand what does it take to be successful in these roles, the interview process. So there's a lot of what I call the external analysis, the market research that you can do that can give you a competitive edge. A lot of times people don't do enough of this. And I've talked to many employers that, in terms of differentiation factor, a big part is also that market research, the insights that you get that can put you up in terms of differentiation. The next phase is really developing your marketing plan. Okay. So this is really that game plan for your job search and networking, right? Based on what you're targeting in terms of role, what type of companies do you want to target? Is it small companies, medium-sized companies, enterprise companies, Fortune 500 companies? What is it, right? So getting really clear on that and putting together your target list of companies that you want to go after, right? Essentially, this is going to really help you stay really focused with your search. From there, you can also put together a target list of people you want to network with as well, based on the companies you're interested in targeting. Okay. This is also that stage where you optimize your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, your elevator pitch, all what I call the marketing collateral, the documents and messages that you need to put yourself out there to network and to apply for jobs there. Okay, so this is also a big component. The last piece is delivering your message. This is really the interview prep and practice piece, right? So working through your elevator pitch, the key motivational questions on your whys, and the behavioral questions, case scenario questions. That's a big piece of the messaging prep that you need to do, which includes like the strategy, the content, and the actual practicing as well with someone. Okay, so that's a high-level view of the 5 phases of the Magnify Your Marketability framework that you want to essentially have. Like most people, from my experience, they tend to just jump right into essentially that marketing piece of not even just marketing, but actually just applying for jobs online. Like so updating the resume and LinkedIn profile and then go straight to applying. Right. So I really want to challenge you to really take a step back, to really think about big picture, right? What do I want? What do I have to offer? What's demand right now, and how can I really differentiate? Okay. Okay, so let me share with you a client success story to tie into this framework that I mentioned. A few years ago, I worked with a client who completed his MBA, and he really wanted to make a big career change from the public sector. He was a policy advisor, so essentially like a marketing campaign manager for politicians. And he really wanted to make the change to become a product manager in technology. That was his big goal after his MBA. And so when you think about it, it's a very different, right? Different industry, different type of roles. So how can you really reposition or rebrand yourself for that, right? So a few things that he did that really made him stand out. Like one was definitely like overhaul his entire resume, like from a very traditional type of resume to a more marketable, like marketing type of resume, and changed the whole language in terms of keywords as well, and was more clear on how essentially being a policy advisor would be similar to like a marketing campaign manager, like so using like different language to be able to connect the dots there. Another thing that he did was he did tons of market research. Actually, he really got to understand the industry, read all like the industry reports as well, really knew it inside and out. So when he actually went to meet with people, he was able to have like really intellectual type of conversations as well. And people were quite impressed because coming from the government background, like how did someone know so much about technology, so much about like the telco industry as well? So he was able to be well prepared for those type of conversations. And the other thing was in terms of the messaging, like we pretty much, strategically positioned like how to really sell himself effectively. And then not only that, how he got hired into Google at the end of the day was that he talked to like 16 people throughout that journey to job search. Like I referred him, his friend referred him, my referral referred him. And so at the end of the day, he had like multiple referrals that essentially, even though he may not have industry experience, the experience in the profession, he had multiple references that what I call like the character reference that really made him stand out. And plus he showed that he was well prepared as well. Okay, so that's just a story, to hope to inspire you there. So let's dive into personal branding. What is personal branding? So let's get clear on that first. Personal branding is about who you are, what you stand for, your reputation, your promise, and your unique value, right? So the who you are piece is really understanding, right, of really your personality, your style. What you stand for really ties into your beliefs, your values, things that you care about, your reputation, right? What people say about you, how you're perceived in the workplace or in life. And lastly is your promise and unique value, which is really that, what I call it's like that competitive edge, right? What are you committed to delivering, right? What is it that you really have to offer? How can you help an employer? So these are the 4 things to keep in mind when it comes to personal branding. And I'm going to go in deeper to walk you through how to really think about developing your personal brand. Okay, so feel free to take notes. It's definitely an exercise that you can do as a take-home exercise there. So why does personal branding matter? It's, because the stronger your brand, the greater your market value. So what I mean by that is, but when you have a strong brand, the greater your market value means that you also have the potential to earn more in terms of income as well, right? And I've seen this, and this is maybe an analogy you can use. Like you think about, say, celebrity brands as well. Like what are some celebrity brands that you can think of? And when you have a strong brand, it really helps you also attract more opportunities as well, right? Okay. So how to develop your personal brand? So I'm going to walk you things like there's things to think about here. Okay. The first is to really seeing yourself as, imagine if you were a product, right? How would you sell yourself? Like, who are you? What are your features and benefits? So the features are like your strengths or the qualities of you, right? The benefits is like the value add, right? There's a saying in sales is that features tell, benefits sell, right? So not only you want to highlight your strengths, you also want to highlight the so what in terms of how can you make a difference there? How can you add value to an employer, okay? The second here is the potential. What's the evidence that you are high potential talent, which is really like the tangible performance and results here that you want to highlight, right? Whether it's that you were recognized as a high performer, or you got like an early promotion, or that you helped, create X, Y, Z, or that you helped, the result was that there was an outcome of whatever that is. You want to be able to highlight that, okay? So that's what I call the proof, the evidence of support. Third piece is the perception. What's your reputation? What are you known for? Okay. So you can send a survey out to your friends and colleagues, maybe like 25 to 50 people, and to find out like what words would they use to describe you? What's your communication style? What's your leadership style? How do they see you add value? Like, what did they come to you for? And I know that all the times, like when people do this, it's a very eye-opening exercise because it reinforces what you see, it validates it, or there's something, that's off that that you need to fix there. Okay. Fourth is really positioning. What's the positioning, which is really the messaging of your brand and unique value? So this is like, it takes time to figure out, but it's really understanding also like what are you targeting? Like in terms of, talking about target market in terms of roles, like what type of organizations you're targeting as well to help you with the messaging. So I'll give you an example. I had a client recently in HR manager, HR business partner, and she has an interest in targeting. She's worked at like a lot of big companies, but she's also interested in working like small companies as well. So part of her messaging in her resume of that bio summary there, she had two different versions in terms of language that she used that would be more applicable to like a smaller company that is like more entrepreneurial versus big company that is more, let's say, enterprise, like more structure. So she used different language, had two different versions there. Okay. And then lastly is the packaging. What is your brand image and how do you want to show up? Okay. So this is all go back to, really understanding like, who you are as well. And it's like that packaging, like when you think about, when you think about, let's say that you go and when you go shopping, when you're shopping for, let's say shampoo as an example, right? As you're saying shampoo, the packaging of the product, like what makes the product more attractive or more interesting. Those are things that you also want to consider as well. Okay. Part of branding. Okay, next is how to identify your unique value. So this is something pretty common that I get asked as a common question. So I know that I've shared this before, but I want to reinforce it again because this ties into the branding piece to help you think about your unique value proposition. First is to really think about your expertise, which includes your knowledge, skills, strengths, and experience. Okay, so do an analysis on that. Then you also want to think about your track record of success. This includes your performance, achievements, and results. Okay, so this is really what employers want to understand. When you're trying to sell yourself, they're really trying to understand your expertise and your track record of success. Okay, so this is something that you want to really understand and reflect on. And then from there, you really want to connect the dots. Ask yourself the so what question here, right? What's your theme? Like what's the common theme here of your brand, the story that you're trying to sell here, which will then help you think about like, what's your unique value proposition that will give you a competitive edge? Okay, so this does require some deep analysis and thinking. You may need to work with someone to be able to figure this out as well, because oftentimes most people are not comfortable in talking about themselves or selling themselves. So you may want to do this exercise with someone. So let me give you an example to really hone in here and how to think about your value proposition. And some of you probably have heard this story before. So many years ago, when I was about to leave Google as a recruiter, I was debating, okay, do I go into more like a recruitment role, or do I go in a sales role, or do I really focus on my business full time? Anyhow, so I applied for a role at LinkedIn as a relationship manager, which is a sales role, right? Relationship manager, similar to like an account manager type of role. And I was in the final round of my interviews going to meet with the country director there. And the recruiter told me one of the pushback, the barriers of entry of getting hired is I don't have a traditional sales experience. I don't have tech sales experience. I don't have the software sales experience. I come from more like a recruiting background, consulting background. So how do I really showcase the experience I have would be highly transferable and be successful in a relationship manager role? Okay, so I had to really connect the dots here. So here's what I did. So what I did was, in my recruiting background, because I worked at Google, I used LinkedIn, the product, a lot to search for talent. So I really knew the product inside and out. And then prior to that, I also worked in a recruiting role, recruiting for the executive MBA program for a top business school. So instead of thinking of recruiting, I thought of how that could be a sales role, because I recruited over hundreds of people to the program, which equate to over $10 million of people enrolling into that program. So what I did was I really pitched to the country director of how I helped the school generate over $10 million of revenue. So I talked about how that's related to sales, that transferable skill there. And then I talked about how I really understood the product because as a recruiter, I use the product day in and day out. And so really understand the product. Another thing I connect the dots was how I also really understand the user, because the role was also pitching to like HR, recruiters as well. And I was able to connect how coming from a recruiting background, I can really relate to their pain points and challenges, how I can build rapport, trust, and relationships. So at the end, like I got the offer for this opportunity. And so I had to really reposition that. And even though I don't have that track record of sales quote and all that, but I had to really think about like what I did was related to sales there to give them confidence. And so you also need to believe yourself that you have what it takes to also be successful in the role there. Now at the end, I did not take the role because I decided to take on my business full time to really serve job seekers instead there. So I hope that gives you an encouragement in terms of how to really like think about like if you're going for like something completely different, how you can really sell yourself and showcase the value you have to offer there. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a client success story here. And it's a story of how my client got into Apple. And I remember this. So this client comes from a medical healthcare background and also worked in tech, in health as well, like telehealth. And so she had the marketing, like a marketing healthcare background essentially. And this new role that she was being interviewed for was essentially in business development. It was more like a sales type of role, but in the health and wellness space for Apple there. So in terms of, when you think about it, in terms of the positioning, right? Like she does have already healthcare background, she has a tech background, so that's a similarity, but she didn't necessarily have sales or business development there, right? So we had to reposition essentially how the work that she's done could be highly transferable and could also be successful there, okay? She went through like over a dozen interviews. I think it was like 16 interviews there, like tons of interviews to get this offer because it was like a brand new role that they created. So it was a very, very thorough process. But at the end of the day, like we went through the details of her branding, her positioning, her sales messages, her why, to get her like really have like a very polished message that really helped her stand out and get the offer at the end of the day. Okay, so it's a lot of work, like especially for those of you are looking to target what I call like really competitive type of roles or competitive type of companies. You really need to like raise the bar. You have to elevate your game, have a really strong brand to stand out there. Okay, so let's move into how to market yourself. Okay, so first is you want to obviously optimize, have an optimized your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Okay, I'm not going to talk about too much details on it because I know I sent you a video on how to develop a great resume and a LinkedIn profile. But one thing here that I do want to highlight here is a few things. People often ask, like, should they be similar? The LinkedIn profile and resume. Some of the content could be similar in terms of the information that you have in the roles. But if you have what I call like, confidential information of numbers, you can definitely tweak it on LinkedIn if you don't want to show it to make it more qualitative based instead of quantitative based there. Okay. The other thing with LinkedIn that is that I would say the tone is more casual, right? So you can put more a casual tone to it and really tell more a story because there's more room for that, right? You have like the tagline, you have the bio. It's a great way to stand out that the resume doesn't have. Okay. So they go hand in hand at the end of the day. And the main thing here I want you to take away is I really want you to think like a marketer and think like a recruiter. Think about the keywords that a recruiter would use to search and what are those keywords you really want to have in those documents there. Okay. Think outside the box. So here are some ideas that you can consider going above and beyond just having a resume and LinkedIn profile to stand out. So first is having like a personal website. Okay. So I've seen a couple of people in my LinkedIn feed who've done this and get job offers. I think like last month, someone who is in a marketing manager type of role, he posted about how he got laid off. His key learnings, and then he created a website that essentially it's like a website that is like a resume, but more, right? It talked more also about who he is in terms of his personality, like his hobbies. It has pictures, books he enjoys reading as well, and then there were like testimonials. And someone from his network commented on it And then another like second or third level connection, a head of growth marketing manager from the company saw his website and reached out to him. And that's how he got hired as a growth manager. Okay. So it's another great way to showcase more of you in terms of who you are, whereas the resume is just like what you've done, but a website can really showcase more of you there. I saw another new grad who did this. I don't know if she's here on this webinar, but she also created one recently as a new grad of a website. Her friend helped her create it, and it also had pictures of her. Like she recently graduated from her master's in international management. And so on her website, it showed also a global view where she's like traveled around the world, and she had testimonials from people she worked with or met across the world, like 3 different testimonials from like Paris and Australia, different places. And I just really loved it because it really gave me a sense of what this person's passionate about, who she is like outside of work as well, and then having these like strong endorsements. And I know she also got an opportunity like through networking, through meeting people. And I know that like, you know, having a website like that really also helped give a also better sense of who this person is. Another one is portfolio. So if you are in more that creative field, like if you are a marketer, you create ads, or if you are a designer, this is a great way to showcase your work. Okay, so it's similar to a website, but it has more like a visual element to it. You can really like tell a story, and that's a great way to really demonstrate your skills. The next is the video bio. So the video bio resume. So this is something I think because we're in more competitive market right now, I think that having this is a great way to stand out. There's been more, I see articles and training out there talking about the video bio resume. And so this is essentially almost like it's telling like that elevator pitch or story about you. You only need to create like a 2 to 3 minute video, and you can really get creative with it. And then it's a great way to stand out there. So you can create it on your phone or your computer, post it into your LinkedIn post, and then you can add it to your feature section in your LinkedIn so that people can refer to that when they click on your profile there. Okay. Now, before actually creating the video, I highly recommend taking a step back and strategize in terms of like, what is the message that you want to say? And also, how do you want to, in terms of like editing as well, if you want to edit it, how do you really want to deliver it? Do you want to have some more creative elements to it or not? I think if you are in more of that creative field, like if you're a marketer, or you're in like video production, like those are good to have, make it essentially your video more fancy as well. But if you're in, let's say finance or engineering, you can really just record like a 2 to 3 minute video of who you are with like a clear background, and then add some text to highlight like your top 3, let's say unique selling points there. Okay. The next is the About Me slides. So this is another way that you can stand out. So it's like a similar like presentation slides. You can use PowerPoint or something like Canva presentation, and you can create like say 10 to 15 slides that tells a story about who you are, what you've done, what you have to offer, your why. Okay. So that's another great way to stand out. I've seen a few people in my network who've done this, and it really makes a difference in terms of like, you know, making you set yourself apart there. It does take more time, but again, this is like that visual element for people to learn more about you. Okay, next is the LinkedIn articles and posts. So this is something pretty common. I've been seeing the last several months here, more and more people starting to write articles and posts. It's a great way to really showcase your expertise and to be top of mind for people in your network as well. So I know recently, one of my webinar participants like wrote an article on leadership, like resilient leadership. And I thought it was a great way, like where she gave like a checklist of questions and steps. It's just a great way to showcase how you think, your process of thinking as well. And post is also a great way to showcase, you know, in terms of what you care about. You can either do like say how to post. So that's like one of the most common how to post there. Or you can do like shout out posts as well. You can do, just say, for example, a shout out post like say this from this webinar, 3 key things that you learned from today's webinar. You can do a shout out, and that's a great way to showcase that you are also investing in your personal development growth as well. Okay, so there's so many ideas. Like feel free in the chat room, like for those who have been posting, like I think Christian, you're here as well. Like you've been doing a lot of posting, and so feel free to share your ideas as well with each other of what has worked well. It doesn't matter what stage you are in your career. Anyone can post. I have seen new grads, like recently, let's say someone who was a recruiting intern at Tesla who's done posts for students on how to network with employers and just get like thousands of likes there. And I have seen like some very senior people create like articles that also have like a really engaging discussion as well. Okay, so it doesn't really matter, even if you think that you don't have much experience, there is still something that you have to offer here, as long as you're also being strategic and thoughtful of how you want to convey your message. Okay, and then lastly is to actively network and ask for referrals. So this is part of your marketing strategy and game plan, is to really think about the people that you want to connect with. I usually recommend to start with people you know in your network, the warm network, to get your feet wet and to build confidence. And then you move into the cold network, which are people that you don't know or people through your friends or colleagues who can refer you to others as well. Okay? I did a whole webinar last month on networking around this, where I walked through like the strategy. For those who are here with me, have not attended that, you can find that webinar on my website as well, where I walk you through like the step-by-step process of networking effectively there. And I've heard many of you who've attended that webinar who have seen like results in terms of getting opportunities or finding like a new mentor and so forth there. Okay, so these are some things to think about when it comes to marketing yourself. I think the takeaway here for you here is I really want you to walk away really thinking, going back to what I mentioned earlier, is what's my marketing campaign? Like if you yourself or product, how do you want to sell yourself? Okay. And so if you're just applying online, it's a really more a passive approach, right? Because people don't really see you like on if you're just applying like online. If you really want to increase that visibility, that credibility and marketability, you have to really put yourself out there, right? So whether it's posting articles, that's one way of doing it. Talking to people is another way, right? Creating videos is another way. So the key here is it's really, to make yourself stand out. There is a study shown that like on LinkedIn, less than 1% of the members on LinkedIn post content on a weekly basis. So if you are just starting out and you're just starting to do like one a week, you're already in that 1% in terms of helping with your visibility and marketability right there. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Not a lot of people do it, and it's a great tool to help you differentiate. Okay, so now I talked about marketing yourself. Let's move into selling yourself. So this is where I'm going to spend a little bit more time on selling here that we're talking about. So first is you want to master your glowing introduction. So this is the elevator pitch, right? Because anytime you meet anyone for the first time, you're going to get a question around, tell me about yourself, right? Or give me some background about who you are. So you really need to nail your glowing introduction. The key here is you want to make it sound interesting, inspiring, and impressive. Okay? And you want to speak with assertiveness, confidence, and enthusiasm. Okay? So this is key in terms of that first thing that you really want to nail is the elevator pitch piece there. Okay? And this is something I've been teaching a lot in my networking events on sharing your story, sharing your marketing soundbite. This is something I can share with you later as well to teach you that formula that you can also participate to practice your elevator pitch. Okay, so that's the first thing first is you got to nail that. Now, I want to talk about how to really elevate your message impact, right? Like once you've created that message, how can you elevate that impact? So first of all, we want to keep in mind is that 93% of your message impact is based on non-verbal cues. Okay, so this means your body language and tone of voice. Okay, the body language includes your facial expression. So nowadays on camera, it's really like the eye contact, your smile, your tone of voice. You want to make sure that you sound essentially confident, right? So these are things you really want to keep in mind. And I'm going to talk about 4 areas of things that you want to pay attention to, because this is from my experience, what I see of what employers or interviewers really evaluate when it comes to interviews there. Okay, the first is really that connection. Right, so the connection piece is really that we call it the likability factor. Like, can you really connect with this person? Do they like you? Do they trust you? Do they feel like they can work with you? Can they see you actually hanging out like after work as well? That's really that connection piece is what we call like in the executive presence training is about the warmth, right? Showcasing that warmth, that friendliness, the approach, being approachable. Be able to also have like casual conversations as well. That's the first piece there. The next is the confidence. The confidence is all about how you project confidence in your own abilities, in how you convey your message. Is it persuasive as well? And how you talk about, your qualifications and how you adapt to like new environments, new skills, new projects as well. Are you confident in what you have to offer, but also like how in terms of being resourceful enough in solving new problems? The third is clear communication. Okay. Communication skills is also one of the most important skill sets that employers look for. So oftentimes in interviews, because when people are nervous or anxious, they may ramble, right? And so being able to have clear communication is really critical as well. What ties into this is really the compelling examples and reasons. Okay. So what I mean by this is really going back to that proof and evidence of support, right? So there's a difference between saying like, oh, I have great communication skills, I have a great leadership skills. You want to really give proof and an actual example from your previous work or project you've done to give that proof so that the employer sees that, okay, like you've done this before, so therefore you must know how to do this in this new role there. Okay, so these are the 4 areas from my experience I've seen as a recruiter. What's critical to move forward. Otherwise, you may get rejected there. Okay, and all of this is what I consider coachable. You can really practice and train yourself to be more like friendly and approachable, to be more confident, to be more articulate and clear, and be able to provide compelling reasons as well. Okay, this is something you can definitely learn and practice. Okay, so now I'm going to move into a little bit more detail in terms of how to sell yourself as the top candidate. Okay, I gave you some more of that guiding principles. Now I want to give you some specific things that you can do to sell yourself and differentiate. Okay, I hope everything ties in here because everything is all about making you differentiate as top talent to set yourself apart. So now I'm going to go into the details. First is you want to showcase that you've done your research and that you're well prepared. Okay, this is so key going in an interview. Like interviewers can tell whether you've actually done your research homework, whether you know much about their company, the culture, their products, their service, everything, like just by the way that you talk. Second is to understand the roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So this is, again, going back to beyond just even reading the job posting. You want to do your research by either talking to someone who worked there or someone who's done a similar role before to really understand what are the responsibilities and expectations. Because this will also then help you tailor your answers to their needs as well. Third is showcasing confident in your own abilities and know what it takes to be successful in the job. Okay. So the confidence is one thing we talked about, but the other is really like, do you know what it takes to be successful in the job? So this is where you really want to ask yourself by analyzing a job posting itself. What is it that they want someone to be able to deliver 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? What does success look like? When you understand that vision and that expectation, you're able to really then talk about, let's say, specific ideas of how you can help them solve a problem and achieve their goals there. Fourth is to demonstrate relevant knowledge, skills, and experience. Right? This goes back to similar to what I said earlier, is really that proof, right? That you showcasing your competency there and showcasing your qualifications. Okay? So don't be afraid to highlight that, even though you may think that people can read your resume, can read your LinkedIn profile, that they should know. Right? A lot of times, sometimes people tell me, well, they should know because they can read my resume. When you're in an interview setting, you are pitching yourself. So you need to actually really speak about what you do know, what you're really good at, and what is it that you have to offer there. Fifth is to provide strong evidence of support. Right, so I mentioned this earlier, is going back to the stories and examples. And then 6, connecting the dots of how you're able to add value in the role. So this is really the so what piece. So oftentimes, a lot of people I work with, but most people just start with like what they've done in terms of evidence of support. But to take it the next step further is to really connect the dots and think of the so what. And in order to really connect the dots, you have to first really understand the roles, responsibilities, expectations, and what it takes to be successful. Because if you don't understand that, then it's really hard for you to connect the dots of what you've done and what they're looking for, how you can really essentially close that gap there. Okay, that's really how you're going to truly differentiate. 7th, give a sense that you are smart, a quick learner, and that you're great to work with. Okay. So, if you feel like this is so key. Remember that example I shared earlier of how the client went from the government industry to telco industry. He didn't have any industry experience or role specific experience, but he demonstrated essentially that he's smart, a quick learner, and someone great to work with. Right. So if you are lacking in that experience piece, the way you're going to differentiate is you want to showcase your personality more. You want to showcase that you can get up to speed, especially these days right now, because I think employers are just also more conscious with spending right now, right? Tighter on cash. So they want to make sure someone they hire that they can also hit the ground running. That's the word that you want to be using, that they can really, get up to speed really quickly and add value, right? Something, I don't know if it's more common, it's I've seen in a lot of my senior level candidate clients as well. Oftentimes they get asked to create a 30, 60, 90-day plan at the final round interview to really make them stand out. Because if they're going for like a more complex role, a more senior role, a great way to seal the deal is really showcasing your 30, 60, 90-day plan. Is as if you're already in this role, what would you do? What does success look like? How would you add value there? Okay, so that's something for you to also think about as you move through the interview process. Okay, so I'm going to share with you another client success story. This is one of my recent clients who got hired to Amazon in a software development manager role. So in tech, he was a VP of engineering at a startup, at a growing startup, and he managed a team of, I don't remember a number, but at least close to 100 people there. And so he was getting tons of interviews as a VP of engineer, 10 plus years experience, getting tons of interviews, but not closing. And so when he got this opportunity with Amazon, he hired me for interview coaching help. And we had 2 coaching sessions and he got the offer. And so some things that we really worked on, one of his biggest challenge was he was not selling himself effectively. His resume was 5 pages long. It was quite long. And he tended to ramble. And so what we really worked on, those 4 C's that you saw earlier, we really worked on that clear communication piece. Really worked on the compelling examples and reasons piece. The other thing, I don't know, for those who have experience or interviewing with Amazon, they're really big on their 14 leadership principles. So we really studied and got a really good understanding of what those 14 leadership principles mean and found questions that relate to each leadership principle and essentially came up with answers for each leadership principle. It seems a lot, right? It's really hardcore, but it's a very, very competitive role. And so we really mapped out the detail. One is really understand what we had to offer, but really understand, to get into a company like this, there are tons of resources online, tons of insights you can gain. You can identify questions of what to expect. He had 4 back-to-back interviews. So what was so critical was also the consistency in terms of how he showed up, in terms of also having enough variety of examples and stories to share, and then also being very compelling as well. Okay. And I recently reconnected with him and he told me how our work together and helping him get really crystal clear of his unique value prop and getting really clear on his stories and his differentiation factors was really what helped him close. And at the end, he had amazing, huge salary increases, over 50%, over 6-figure salary increase there. And so if you're going after these more competitive roles, you really have to elevate your game out there. Okay. Okay, so we're close to wrapping up there. So feel free to start submitting your questions. So what employers look for in interviews. So these are these 6 areas was actually done a study by LinkedIn that was published last year and also a few years ago. These are 6 areas that what they call that reveal high potential talent. So I want to walk you through these 6 things to keep in mind when it comes to preparing interviews and coming up with your answers there. First is really the adaptability. This is the number one, 70% of employers identify as the most important quality or skill that they look for. And I think it's even more critical right now, given the situation that we're in of what does that new normal look like, going back to work and all that, the adaptability piece. So this ties into your ability to embrace change, to be resourceful, to be versatile, to be flexible. Right. So these are things that you really want to think about when it comes to talking about your story, or even right now, even if you're not working as well, you can think about ways of how you have to be adaptable in adjusting as well. Okay, so that's the first piece there. So you can expect, this is the type of the questions that you can get is around adaptability. The next is what we call the culture ad. Right? So this ties into really what they call it's like, that fit, the personality, the culture, the core values. Those are things that you really want to keep in mind. So as an example, like when I recruited at Google, like one of the criteria that they used to evaluate candidates was called the Googliness factor. And it's really what the culture ad. So it's really understanding the person in terms of not only just like their ambition and their experience, but it's like, who are they? Like, what do they really care about? What do they do outside of work? Those are things that they really try to understand as well. And so for this aspect, you can really talk to people who work at your target company, read about it in, if they're like bigger companies and they have like a career site, read about it, check out their videos, check out their social media. How do they communicate? Those are things that you want to check out and understand there. Third is collaboration. So this ties into teamwork. It ties into communication as well. It ties into conflict management, how well you play with others. Those are type of questions, especially even now, collaboration in virtually, right? How do you collaborate in a virtual environment? So these are things that you really want to think about in terms of communicating online through video and through like online chats. Next piece is leadership. So this is another common one, right? So leadership doesn't have to just be having a title, but like how do you showcase you are proactive, that you are eager, that you take initiative, that you are solution oriented. Those are some examples that you really want to think about there. Next piece is growth potential. So this is really, I would say, it's tied back into talking about really your aspiration, your ambition, your goals, what you care about. It's really showcasing that learning attitude that you invest in personal development, professional development, upskilling. That all ties into growth potential there of what you can talk about. And lastly, it's prioritization. Okay, so this is all about tying into time management, organizational management, in terms of how you manage your time, managing your resources, even like right now with like, being in a work from home environment, how do you really juggle between like work and family and all that there? Okay. So I hope this is helpful to give you the 6 areas. You can actually find this, like a study was published by LinkedIn. And I actually list out like 30 popular interview questions within these 6 categories as well there. Okay. All right. So to wrap up here, the signs of high potential talent. Okay, so there's what I call my 4 Ps in terms of really what are the signs of high potential talent. This is based on my experience also as a recruiter of having seen so many like resumes. I worked with tons of candidates in the past and clients. First is you want to showcase progression. How have you shown growth in your career? Have you taken on, let's say, more responsibilities or done more like breadth of work of experience that you've gained as well? Like how have you shown that progression in your career? The third is really the performance. So this ties into that achievements and results. It ties into whether you've been recognized as a high performer as well. The third is promotion. So you want to highlight, if you received any like promotions and give an idea, like, whether if you had like early promotion or if you were one out of how many people that got promoted in the workplace. Those are also a great way to stand out. Fourth is the personal brand. So I talked about that earlier, right? Having a great personal brand also helps increase your market value, which also helps you attract more opportunities there. And lastly is professional. Really, this also ties in the personal branding piece as well in terms of showcasing your being a professional, your competency, being respectful, and how you conduct yourself essentially. Okay. Okay, so my final words of encouragement is to own your greatness, stand out to get hired. Okay. At the end of the day, everything I taught you here, what is so key is that you first need to see yourself as a valuable candidate, a valuable hire, right? And you got to really own it. I talk to a lot of my clients, like, own your story, own your greatness, own like what you're amazing at, because you need to really step up and own that in order to really convince others of why they should hire you. Okay, so I hope this was helpful and that you enjoy this. And next, I'm going to move into quickly before Q&A. I just want to share with you a few things in terms of opportunities that you can also work with me in an upcoming event as well. Okay, so if you're interested in getting some one-on-one guidance, here's one option for you to consider. Is I have a popular Pick My Brain session that's currently 40% off for a limited time. So I've had a lot of people last month, to book that one-off session where you can ask me anything such as branding, marketing, selling yourself effectively. I'll help you strategize and connect the dots. Clarity on what's next, and if you're pivoting. So if you're not really sure, that's something I can also help you with that as well. Giving you feedback on your resume and LinkedIn profile, job search and networking strategy as well. So like working through your game plan, or mock interview. So these are just some examples that, what we can discuss in a one-on-one session. You can book a 30, 45-minute or 60-minute session there. Most people I've been working with have started with like a 60-minute session and then they book like another like 30 or 45-minute session there. So in terms of the investment, with the 40% off, it's between $150 to $300 Canadian plus tax. And I'm currently offering it to a maximum 2 sessions per person there. Okay, so if you're interested, feel free to take a look. I know Jean's going to share that with me, share it in here as well, that you can click on that link, or also I'll follow up with an email as well. Okay, so next is an upcoming event that I want to share with you as well. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Is my Share Your Story networking event. So I hosted one of these last month. So for those who are here and have attended this, feel free to comment on it about your experience. So what it is that you get to practice your elevator pitch and you're going to network with others. You'll receive pre-training materials to craft your story. So I'm going to give you my 6 P's formula on crafting your elevator pitch. I'm also going to give you samples of how to craft a great elevator pitch as well. Okay? And also training on how to present yourself on video interviews there. So it's a great way to practice and network. So it's next Thursday on June 25th from 2:15 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. I've extended the time. It used to be an hour and a half. I decided to extend the time because people were telling me they really enjoyed it and wanted extra time to network there. So I buffered extra time. And I'm giving a super early bird. For those who are interested, it's only $20 plus tax until tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. This is really mainly for my webinar participants. I want to let you know you're the first to know about this. And so you can use a promo code when you're going in, Top Talent. Enter Top Talent to get that $5 off. Otherwise, it's $25 there. Okay, so enter Top Talent to get the extra $5 off for $20. And there's limited seats. So this is very different from this type of webinar. I'll be using Zoom. So it'll be within, last we had like 50 to 80 people, essentially. So you'll be live on camera with me. I'm going to go through like a kickoff, a mini training, and then we're going to do 3 rounds of pitching that you get to pitch your story. And then you're going to get feedback from others who are in your breakout room there. Okay. And then you're going to do some networking. Okay. And then we're going to come back where we're going to debrief, and then we're going to have some people can also pitch and get some feedback in front of all of us. And then we do like multiple rounds, like another 2 rounds there. Okay. For those who attended, like feel free to comment. I know the feedback was so positive. Like people really, really enjoyed it because it really, one of the common feedback was they felt more confident in pitching in front of a camera. That was huge. Like some people were very, very nervous before, but after going through that event, it gave them even more confidence there. Okay. So I hope to see you guys there. For those interested, sign up, today. I know it's going to get sold out. Because last time we were sold out in like 3 or 4 days there. So do sign up if you're really interested. Okay. Okay, so if you want more info, visit my website, www.mymarketability.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@mymarketability.com. Okay, and feel free to also connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so let me get back in here as well. Okay, so I'm back live on camera. Hello. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going to take a look at the questions here. Jean, are you going to be coming online with me as well? And just to see if you're going to be asking me questions here. Okay. Hey, Jean. Oh, let me see here. I'm going to look at the questions here on my computer as well. Okay. Let me go through. Okay, so there are some questions. So let me go through some of the questions here. So Jean, I think she was here, but she's not right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at the Q&A. I'm going to answer questions. Okay. So one question from Raj is, when applying for online opportunities, how does ATS read functional resume? So functional resume, Raj. So first of all, with ATS, the applicant tracking system. So one thing to keep in mind with the applicant tracking system, they read from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, that's in general. There's, by the way, there are over like 200 ATS systems, so every is different, but in general, that's how it works. And so it's so critical that in terms of the resume that you have is to avoid using any tables, like having like columns and all that. It's not user friendly there. Okay, and so there are oftentimes it's really they look for keywords. That's how they use it. Now, from my experience, like from even when I worked at Google, like even though they received like thousands or millions of resumes, they still had like resume screeners to screen all the resumes. So what it does is that ATS just helps in terms of screening, in terms of the percent of a match. And so this is why keywords really come into play. You want to use it strategically. You don't want to just copy and paste there, but at least your top half of your resume should have those relevant keywords that match to the job posting there. Okay. Okay. Next one. Anita, how do you handle gaps in a resume? So that's a good question. So one of the things that what I usually recommend doing is all you have to do is add a career note. So like a one-liner career note of what did you do during that time, whether you were you took a leave to look after kids, or whether you went back to school, or whether you just decided to take a time off. You just list just a one-liner of what you did during that time there. Okay, so you don't need to have over explanation. So one-liner. Okay, Harpreet, can you share any tips or advice for new lawyers? I have worked with lawyers before, so I'm not sure what area you are in, Harpreet, but I mean, this would be similar to, I think, any, like if new lawyers or new grads, at the end of the day, I think what I've seen a lot of like lawyer type of resumes, it's quite academic and it's quite responsibilities based. So what's really key here is I want to make sure that one thing encourages is to really highlight in terms of your unique selling points there. If you're looking to make a pivot as a lawyer, like I've seen people who want to make a pivot from working at a law firm and working in industry, you definitely need to understand the industry and do research there. Okay. 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 I see some questions asking about the event. June, if you can maybe post in the chat room for people to sign up, that'd be great. Or you can just go to my website, mymarketability.com, and click on events, and it's there right now. Okay.
Hi, Diana. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, I tried to log back on, but the audio wasn't working. So I'm sure you already went through some of the questions, and I did group some of the questions throughout the chat. So I have some kind of themes to go over. So I know the last one I heard was just like about ATS testing and kind of different tips. So was there a specific topic you were just looking at? I can kind of like go under the theme and talk about the questions because I do have them grouped on my end.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you start? Because I just kind of ended with answering the question like for new lawyers and then about the event there. Okay. So that was about it. So if you have some grouped, we can go in any direction with you.
Okay, awesome. So more of the recent questions in the beginning of this webinar was more so about outreaching. So a lot of people were wondering, how do you work on the messaging aspect, specifically reaching out to your network that aren't necessarily in the industry you're interested in, but they might have want to work at, like that's their dream company, but they might just have people in a different industry. And second, how do you get your resume to hiring managers or people in the company if you don't know anyone at the company you want to target?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a big one. So first of all, let's talk about the outreach first. So a few things. I wanted to say some few things because it's such a big topic, outreach networking. Really, one of the things is first you got to do your research. Okay, you have to really do your research and also get a really clear understanding of why you want to meet someone. Okay. And that initial outreach needs to really, it needs to be like a simple message on like more like acknowledgement and what you're interested in learning from them. Okay. Don't go into this whole pitch about like, oh, I'm lost and I need help with this. And don't go into like a whole long message, because most likely you're not going to get a response. So it's better to actually have just acknowledgement and what you admired about them, and also like what you would like to learn from them. And you put an ask, like, would you have time to answer a few questions either by text or through phone chat? Heather. Okay, so ask a question there. Honestly, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give an example here. There's one thing is I want to encourage people is to really just bring more of that human approach back to conversation. So I'll use an example. Like this week, like I've been getting hundreds of messages from many of you as well. And I just want to encourage you to start a conversation, start a dialogue. I had this one person who reached out to me to connect. He's actually very senior. He's like VP, general counsel, like in the legal field at a big company. And he stood out because even though he's so busy, like he reached out to me to connect, he actually just started having a conversation of sharing with me why he decided to connect with me. And it's because he said he really enjoyed my content. And then he talked about a little bit about what he's been posting on his content. So I went to check it out. And that's how we just started the dialogue here. But what's interesting, I'll tell you, is in terms of outreach, is that you don't need to make it so the initial outreach very salesy. It can just really be a conversation of what you admire about them or just acknowledgement. And so in this scenario, as an example, I actually acknowledged his post because he told me he read my post, and I said, okay, I read his post as well. And then he noticed, like in my videos, I have books. He asked me, like, what are the books that I read? And it was just that interesting dialogue. But because of that, I remember this person now. Okay. And so for those who are just starting out, don't make it feeling like it needs to be like a hard pitch. When you're just getting started out, like really make it an informational type of meeting to just right? And then the other piece you talked about was the resume. How do I get the resume there? So this ties into that piece. If you don't have a relationship with someone, don't ask for a referral, don't ask for a job without really building that relationship. That is so key. Okay. And so the way to get the resume actually does need to first start from the rapport building of the trust and likability first. And somehow either they ask you, they're like, okay, is there anything I can help you with? And then they get to refer you there. Okay. Another way is that if you do have, let's say, a call with someone scheduled for that networking, and they are, let's say, in a hiring position, what you can do is the day before is send them the agenda of the meeting as well, and then send them your resume. I usually recommend, before the resume it's really just make it casual, right? Because sending resume is a little bit more formal, and I feel like you almost need people want to acknowledge that first. And I would recommend that do it after a meeting where people say like, yeah, I'm happy to help you, I'm happy to refer you. Then you send a separate email with that thank you message with your bio message that they can use to forward off along with their resume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is so important, to your point, Diana, with the human touch, especially in our current situation. We don't have that, in-person opportunity to meet people and like have that human touch. So I think that that's super important to remind us to when we reach out to add that personal touch to create and start that relationship building. And so that's awesome. So to lead into that, when we are, getting through that first stage and like starting to build that relationship, and they actually start to ask us about our strengths and what we do, what are we passionate about. So what are some, like best skills to emphasize through our elevator pitch, and what will help us stand out, especially if there are people who are more generalists and they are just looking into something more niche, like pivoting, so they might not necessarily have the experience for this role.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jean. So I would say two things, right? If I think about this, if you're just meeting someone the first time, is one is really showcasing that the curiosity and being a great learner, right? Showcasing that you're someone who enjoys learning, Heather.
Right.
The other piece is around what I call the ambition, like in terms of ties in the growth, your aspirations, your drive, being a self-starter, that eagerness factor there. Right? It's really showcasing the eagerness piece, because what's going to happen is that people are going to see that you are really, by doing that and talking about things that you care about, that you're passionate about, and that you're learning, it's really showcasing that you are determined, right? That you are determined to figure something out as well, right? So those, in terms of starting, I think those are the two areas to things that you can talk about. So as an example, like right now, like, I think I see a lot of people upskilling through taking like courses through like LinkedIn as an example, or taking like extra certificate. Those are things that you could highlight. Or even just like through, say, articles that you've read, that what you're learning about the new trends, like identify like new trends and opportunities. Those are things to be good to talk about as well. I've seen some people, especially like I'm thinking right now, like people who are, let's say, looking to really pivot, or even like new grads, creating like let's just say solving a problem. There's a thing like, what's like a problem out there right now in either the world, or like if you're targeting a company, like what are some big challenges that our employers are facing, and how can you, like, what would be some of your ideas that you can share, right? And so that's already showcasing in terms of you coming up with like new solutions, like being solution oriented.
Yeah, I think that's really great that you pointed it out, because in this time of age, we really do need to be creative and think outside of the box. So that's awesome that you gave us and shared that advice. I actually wanted to move on into more of like the technical aspects, because we're getting a lot of questions about, once I apply, should I contact a recruiter? How do I reach a recruiter without knowing which company they work for? Like, how do I find them? And like, how do I break through the noise? Because like yourself, you get many messages in your inbox too. So how do we get your attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how do I get the attention? That's a question. How do I get the attention? So I think this is going back to being creative. So first of all, you do your best to find the recruiter. So either you find the job posting, or you find them through like the search on LinkedIn there. I think a few ways, like when I think about back my days as a recruiter as well, the way to really stand out is to really avoid a generic message, meaning like, hi, I'm looking for a job. Please keep me in mind for opportunities, right? Like that's really sort of standard message. Like, here's my resume. I think the way to stand out, it is really being more thoughtful in either really thinking about like, what is it that you can tell about yourself in terms of a story or something interesting, or what is it that you can tell maybe about the company that you've noticed about them in terms of the news as well, or what is it that you can talk about, or what you notice about, if they're like, to say, an agency recruiter, like what are things that they've been searching for, right? So it's almost like showcasing that it is essentially showcasing you've done your research. That's what it is. Right? So it's a difference between just like, hey, I applied for a job and I want to let you know just to keep you in mind for opportunities. Versus like, hey, apply for your job and I want to let you know that your company is one of the top companies that I would love to work for because of X, Y, and Z.
Right. Yeah, that's a great idea to actually follow up. So when we do follow up, some people were asking, so once I followed up, is there like a kind of guideline of how many times should I follow up? Let's say they may have forgotten to reply, or we had a conversation, but then they also kind of lost the touch of the conversation. How do we create that momentum to keep that conversation flowing? And also another one was like, just more so if I already applied to the job and then I actually got a scheduled call with someone, should I mention that I applied to the job already, or should I just kind of have that conversation first?
That's a good question. So first of all, let me think here. There's a difference between eagerness versus being desperate.
Yes.
So let me just stand there. So I think that if you got approached for a call and you've applied, definitely you should let them know, like, I've already applied for the job and I'd love to talk to you as well. Now, there's a scenario that's different, is that if you apply for the job online and you got approached by a recruiter externally, an agency recruiter, that's a different story. So you want to let them know you applied, but they can no longer represent you, because if you already applied internally to a company and an agency recruiter has had that same opportunity for you, they cannot pitch you to the employer. Okay, so that's something just to keep in mind there. So what was the other part? So the other part you asked was how often to follow up. So I think this is where, keeping in mind, like, depending on like recruiters, like sometimes like a lot of big companies as recruiters, they get overflow of messages, like hundreds and hundreds or thousands of messages, right? So I think that sometimes like even just following up and saying like, hey, just want to check in and follow up. I would say even like sometimes follow at least like 3 times. If they don't follow up, then there's not much you can do, or figure out different ways besides, let's just say, emailing to get a hold of them there, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a difference though between, I remember I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, is that if one of the company is what I call like your dream company, and they don't have something right now, but how do you stay in touch with them? That's the key question here, right?
Yeah.
So I'll use an example. Like when I was at Google, I recruited for, when I first started, I was recruiting for mainly senior roles, right? Senior account executives, account executive roles. And there weren't that many account coordinators, account manager roles. Mm-hmm. So I told the people who were at more of that junior mid-level, I said, I don't have any senior roles right now, but stay in touch with me. And 6 months from now, something's going to open up. So those who, what I call eager, there's a difference between eager versus desperate. Eager is they'll check in either once a month or every other month. And instead of positioning like, hey, is there anything available yet? It's more around like, hey, just want to check in. This is what I've been up to. And want to let you know I'm still interested in Google as well. It was just like more positioning of like an update there versus like a demand of like, hey, like, is there something for me? Right. Mm-hmm. And so what's interestingly, like literally it was a year end, all of a sudden I had like 20 roles open at the account manager level. And so those who stayed in touch with me on that monthly or every other basis, they were top of mind. So by then, those were the people who I connected with first, right? And so the key here, it is really relationship building. Like it is really like a check-in, a hello. It could be like even like wishing them well. Like if there was a holiday, like you'd say here, like Canada, like Happy Canada Day coming up, for example, or like Thanksgiving. Like those are like things where you can like just check in and say hello, and people always, those little things that people appreciate that will stand out. Another way, I'm just thinking an idea, like what people have stood out is there are people like times where I reached out and they're not the right candidate, or they're not interested. I reached out, I think they're right. The candidate thinks they're not the right opportunity. Mm-hmm. And instead of just brushing off saying like, oh, like I'm not interested in this role, some people, very few people who understand the art of networking, relationship building, they'll refer me to other people in their network.
Oh, interesting.
So mm-hmm. They'll be like, this role is not right for me or it's too junior for me, but hey, like reach out to so-and-so in my network. Mm-hmm. And I can still remember these people because there's only a handful of people who do this. Yeah. And so it's almost like that pay it forward principle, kindness of that mm-hmm. principle of helping each other out as well, right? Even if this something's not a right fit, but here's someone you consider. Like I even remember like times when I rejected a lot more people than I accepted when I was at Google. I now always build relationships with them as well. And there were people I rejected who would also refer me people in their network as well. Right. Yeah. And it's amazing, but this is all about that whole paying forward philosophy here of helping each other out.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way to be remembered and also to stand out because, you're paying it forward and you just never know when an opportunity might come to either do like an initiative, a collaboration, or a job opportunity down the road. And so just by doing that, even though they got rejected and referred you to someone else in the network, like for yourself, you already remember them and it's been many years like since you've spoken. So that's a great strategy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then so in terms of resume building and also, different technical aspects of the interview, we had a few questions about, what are the guidelines to a resume? Should I keep it to one page? How many professional years are required to have 2 pages? And then also, is it okay if I just left my job currently to leave it as present on LinkedIn? And how long should I wait until I take it off?
Good question. Oh, I remember I did a poll on this. So if you recently got laid off or lost your job, okay, you don't necessarily need to update right away, but I do recommend like within, like even after a month, like definitely within 3 months, you want to update it. Okay. Cause, usually within that, even 1 month is fine. But if you wait more than 3 months, it's still not updated. And when a recruiter talks to you, it could be a red flag. Right. And I've seen this as a recruiter, like where I've contacted a candidate thinking that they're working and then they get on the phone and realize they're not working. Now, it could be a red flag because then it's more around also the transparency and honesty as well there. So, and also like I think sometimes, and I know there's this, I guess the stigma, people thinking, well, if I put myself unemployed, does that make me not marketable? Honestly, I think right now in today's market, because so many people have been impacted, I think employers understand. So to me right now, I feel like it's not as a red flag, like being unemployed. It's actually more, I think it's better to be, just indicate that you ended employment and you're looking for something new there. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the length of the resume, I know this is a huge debate, people around it, but I would say in general, like just from my experience, having worked with like executives and all that, usually I recommend the max is really the 2-page, max 3 pages if you're more at that really senior level. Like out of the hundreds of people that I've worked with and clients, like I've only had one person so far at the C level with a 3-page resume. Everyone else, like you can get to like a 2-page resume.
Yeah.
For like new grads, entry level, like under 5 years experience or even 7 years experience, you can probably most likely get it to 1-page resume there. I think that if you're going to fill it up to 2-page, like make sure it's like filled up to 2-page there, and don't have like it hanging to like the 3rd page, like a little like quarter of that there. This is where you have to play around with font and margins as well.
Right.
I usually recommend from a formatting or layout standpoint, if you have already like, let's say more than 10 years experience and you have a variety experience, something that's a good idea to add is what I call the skills table, right? That core expertise, like a 3x3 or 4x3 table of keywords, because that's also going to help with the ATS from a search standpoint, and also helps when a recruiter looks at it, like what's really your summary of qualifications and key area of expertise as well. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Something really just more technical there is, for those who do that, make sure you don't use the table feature in Word because it's not ATS friendly. Instead, I've heard it's to use the columns feature, like insert columns instead of tables there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you, Diana. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't even know that we had to use a specific column to, pass the ATS system. And so we also have a question regarding interviews. And there was one lady, I think her name was Helen. She's asking, can we talk about our weaknesses in an interview? And if we do get asked, like, what are my strengths and weaknesses, what are the best approaches to this question?
Good question. Absolutely, you can talk about your weaknesses. And I know it's very awkward. Most people don't feel comfortable talking about that. And I'll share with you this. Like actually, like companies, like for example, like a lot of tech companies, like Amazon, for example, they love asking failure questions. What's your biggest failure? Tell me about it. And what they're trying to do is really understand, like, how do people get back up? Like, how do you find like that resiliency, that strength, and what you learn from it? So absolutely, you can talk about it. Now, when it comes to actually talking about your weaknesses, like what are your weaknesses? So some of the things I always talk about is your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness, right? So meaning by using your greatest strength too much, how it can backfire as well, right? So what you want to do is really, you want to list out what are some things that could be a potential weakness of yours, and what have you done about it to mitigate like some of the risk or impact there, right? Because you're showcasing the awareness. So I'll use an example. So for me, like my greatest strength is I have a high standard of excellence. Being a maximizer, and so the potential weakness, the weakness of it, the impact is by having that high standard of excellence. The negative impact could be that people could maybe feel intimidated in coming to me for help, as an example, or that they feel like they need to have everything ready before they can meet with me. So something that would do about it is like, having more like regular check-ins to see how people are doing, and to give like say acknowledgement as well, to let people know that they are doing great along the way. So it's showcasing how your awareness, and then it's like, what are you doing about it there? Okay. And you don't want to just brush it off. It's like, oh, I take on too much, or I'm a perfectionist. Like you really want to be honest about it. Now, obviously, if your weakness is like a critical key success factor to the job, that's probably not the best thing to highlight. Like, for example, if your weakness is you're not organized and the job requires you to be attention to detail, that's not going to go well there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. I think we really have to cater it to the specific job posting description to kind of tailor our answer to. So there's a lot of room for interpretation in that sense. There was also another question regarding being in the COVID-19, this pandemic. A lot of people have gone through many rounds of interviews, and halfway through, the employer actually contacted the candidate and say, due to COVID-19, we have reassessed and we are not hiring anymore. So the hiring freeze just stopped, started mid interviews. So is there a way to kind of reconnect with that recruiter and maybe like talk to them about future opportunities once they start hiring again?
Yeah, for sure. So I know that's a good question. So it does happen, right? That it's definitely, it is out of the recruiter's control, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be also empathetic as well. And essentially stay in touch. Like, would love to stay in touch, or when the role reopens again, can you let me know? At the end of the day, it's really being understanding as well there. That's key there. Oh, my son's coming on. I'm going to have to wrap up soon.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that actually does like conclude most of the groupings of questions that we had. Like some were more specific to, like how do you find recruiters in specific demographic areas? And then there's also, some people were asking how to sign up for the event again. So I just reposted the promo. So that should be okay if they need to click the link.
Yeah. And I'll send in an email as well.
Yeah,
I'll send in an email as well. Yeah. If for those of you, if you go to my website, mymarketability.com, click on events, you'll see that there as well there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that pretty much actually concludes most of the questions. There were some overlapping ones. I don't know if you wanted to like skim it through quickly. So
I saw some comments about like, can we talk about my son?
Yeah.
This is Aiden. This is Aiden. You want to say hello to everyone? This is Aiden. Yes. Hi. So for those who are wondering, I appreciate all those who come online to support. Yeah, I have 2 young kids who are 3 and 5, and this is why I do webinars between 2:30 to 4, because that is the time when they're out for a car ride nap with daddy, so that I can have the privacy here. So I know we just passed the 4 mark here, and so he's back in here. I wanted to hold him. But thank you so much. I just want to say thank you so much for participating, and feel free to reach out. And for those who've been to my events, like I'm all about adding value and giving back. And I know that I have a very strong also community of people helping each other out as well. And I want to continue to see that, like really paying it forward, supporting each other, being uplifting as well. Because we all need that right now at times like this. It's really being supportive and understanding there. So I hope you guys all found this helpful and you were able to meet each other as well and exchange your LinkedIn profiles there. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Diana.
All right, take care. You want to say bye-bye? Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.